Now, you don't need to be an avid football fan or to have watched the game over the years to know the name of Jeff Astle. And certainly if blue and white stripes are your preference, he is just the man, the king, as the West Brom fans always call him. But of course, his death provoked a whole lot of questions. And astonishingly, more than 10 years on, they still haven't been answered. I'm delighted to say his daughter Dawn is with me. Dawn, nice to see you again.
Hi.
I mean, you were quoted the other day saying that the FA were dragging its heels and it was inexcusable. I mean, I think that's being kind, isn't it, to say they've dragged their heels?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it really is a disgrace that almost 14 years since the coroner's verdict of industrial disease, you know, in other words, Dad's job had killed him due to the repeated heading of footballs, and we're no further forward. And I think that just shows the utmost disrespect to Dad, who was an England international at the end of the day, represented his country and was very proud to represent his country. And to our family, to the hundreds, perhaps thousands of other former players who are living with degenerative brain disease. And as I said, I thought it was inexcusable, and I think it's indefensible, really. I
mean, it's really kind of taken over your life, hasn't it? I mean, this has just become a complete cause célèbre for you, and you've had huge support from all sorts of places, haven't you?
Brilliant. You know, we can't thank the football fans enough, and especially West Bromwich Albion. I mean, we always say Dad loved them as much as they loved him, and he really took them to their hearts. And I think that's perhaps where football authorities they've had a bit of a downfall, because football fans never forget their old heroes, ever. It doesn't matter what club, you know, they played for, and I think it showed not just with the West Brom fans, but the support we've had at virtually, well, every ground we've been to. When we took the Justice for Jeff banner, every ground we've been to, and emails and messages from football fans, you know, with no links to West Bromwich Albion, and I think that shows really the power that ordinary people, driven by this extraordinary cause, can still wield, you know, even in the face of extraordinary odds, I suppose.
So far as the coroner was concerned, I mean, he said that having spent his lifetime, and he was noted for heading goals, wasn't he, that big, heavy, wet leather footballs as they were had caused brain injuries, which he said, you know, were like a heavyweight boxer who'd lost every fight.
Yes, he was very clear, and then when he said that, well, what happened was that a leading pathologist who examined Dad's brain basically stood in the coroner's court and described how badly damaged it was, and that it looked like the brain of a boxer. And of course, then the coroner said that his Dad's what they call occupational exposure had made at least a significant contribution to the disease which had caused his death. And of course, the ruling was an industrial disease. You know, his Dad's job had killed him. And I think, I mean, it was a landmark decision. You know, it was a landmark ruling. And I think in any other industry, a ruling like that would have had earthquake-like repercussions for that particular industry in question, but not football. You know, 14 years on, and we're still asking the question. I mean, you know, my main question, you know, to football authorities is, my dad was a footballer. How did he end up with boxer's brain? You know, how did he end up with this disease?
Well, I mean, I know you've spent years, and you know, I'm sure you got files this thick about conversations with and letters with the FA. I mean, what reason have they given for the fact that they haven't done anything, which is effectively where we're at?
Well, we met with Greg Dyke. He invited
He's the chairman of the FA, of course.
Yes, he was. But to be fair, he wasn't in charge of the FA when Dad died.
No.
But he invited us over to Wembley Stadium before the 2014 Community Shield final, and we had a real good hour with him. But we also took with us Dr. Willie Stewart. And Dr. Willie Stewart is one of the world's leading experts in the disease chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Because, I mean, it's shortened to CTE, but basically that's the disease Dad died of. And it's not a new disease, it's just got a new name. It was boxer's brain, punch-drunk syndrome, dementia pugilistica, because it had only ever been found in boxers. So
just so I'm clear on this, there was no suggestion that it was dementia or Alzheimer's?
Well, when Dad was originally diagnosed at just before he was 55, they said that he had dementia, early onset Alzheimer's, and back in 2015 his brain was re-examined because we donated it for research. And when I heard about this disease and I heard about Dr. Willie Stewart and his fears that a lot of professional sportsmen were actually being misdiagnosed, I immediately contacted him and basically asked him, Dad's brain's at Queen's Medical at Nottingham, I believe it's still there, is it too late now? Because I don't know what happens when you donate an organ.
No.
And I said, would you be able to re-examine it to see if actually Dad had Alzheimer's, as he was originally told, or has he got this CTE boxer's brain? And it's strange because when you donate an organ, it's still technically our property.
Right.
So I emailed Nottingham and I emailed Dr. Stewart and I gave him permission for the brain to be transported up to him. And following, obviously looking at the tissue or the slides, whatever they look at, he actually flew up. He was in London and he actually flew up to us. I picked him up from East Midlands Airport and he came to Mum's house and he was very clear. He said, Dawn, you know, your dad didn't have Alzheimer's.
It's an extraordinary situation because, as you say, this is by no means a one-off, is it?
Oh, no. No.
And we were talking before we came on air, I mean, the England World Cup team, just those who actually played in that final in '66, which we all remember, 4 of that team been diagnosed with problems.
Yeah.
Health problems, Alzheimer's, one thing or another.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly sad, and I think the families have been, you know, showed a lot of dignity and been very brave in coming forwards. But I think what's striking, if we take that particular England team, the World Cup winning team of the 11, and we look at that we know of four players. Now, if you look at the stats that the Alzheimer's Society actually put out, they say that between the ages of 65 and 69, there's a 1 in 75 people to get Alzheimer's. And I know that Nobby Stiles, Ray Wilson, Martin Peters were all diagnosed within that age bracket. So we've now got 3 out of 11, possibly 4 out of 11.
Yeah, because Jack Charlton's in his 70s, isn't he? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We mustn't lose sight of the fact that you've got a meeting next week with the new head of performance medicine at the FA.
Yes.
This is, you hope, and I'm sure you've felt you've had breakthroughs before, but this, you think, might just be.
I hope so. I'm meeting with Dr. Charlotte Cowie, the new head of performance medicine, and I have met her previously, actually, at a concussion conference in Glasgow. And you know, she was talking about Dad and what had happened, and you know, I just got the impression, just from meeting her very informally, that it was something, you know, that she understood. And I just hope, I really hope that she can answer some of the questions we have. And I think one of them is back in December 2014, myself, my sister and my mum met John Bramall, Gordon Taylor's deputy at the PFA, and Dr. Ian Beasley, the FA's doctor, and another FA member at St George's Park. And we spoke about lots of things. They were telling us about the new concussion guidelines that were going in place for the Premier League. And at the time, you know, obviously what we want to know, and of course that's great that those guidelines are in place, but what we want to know is, you know, what's happening to the longitudinal study into the effects of head in footballs, and just as importantly, to look back, have we got a problem with our former players and dementia? And they basically told us that they would be sending a series of questions off to FIFA. And I think at the time, the 3 of us literally dropped our pens and looked up, you know, as if to say, you're sending it to FIFA. And I think at the time they were embroiled in bribery and corruption, and the thought, I guess, of FIFA even looking at and possibly leading in a piece of research that could be the most important piece of research the game of football has ever known was just unthinkable. But they explained that because they were the governing body, that was probably the right way forward.
Yeah.
So, of course, we're now forward on to this year. And as we said before, in April, the families of the '66 World Cup players. And I read in one of the papers that Dr. Ian Beasley, who was part of the meeting back in December 2014, saying that a series of questions would be sent to FIFA imminently and instantly. Well, to be honest, you wonder about your own sanity. You think, I'm sure they said that in December.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're upset and you're angry, and I look back on the minutes, you know, and quite clearly it says that they will be contacting FIFA. So my question is, you know, is this another empty gesture? You know, are we going to get more apologies and more excuses? And I emailed all the members of those who were at the meeting, and I included Gordon Taylor, and I included Greg Dyke, and just to ask them, why has it taken nearly a year and a half to send a series of questions?
Well, it can only get better for you, but I guess you've probably thought that for a long time. I wish you every success in what you're doing, Dawn Astle. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.